Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Black, and I'm the Executive Director of 40 West Arts. And we're so excited. It's actually First Friday right now. Our gallery, 40 West Gallery, is open 6 to 9 tonight. We'd love to see you and have you come out. And if you're joining us virtually, we have a really great program for you tonight. This month, we are celebrating the art of conservation. And we have some amazing partners who will be with us tonight and throughout the month. It's Kendall Davis and Erica Jaffe from Nature's Educators. And we're so excited to partner with Nature's Educators this month to talk a lot about conservation and wildlife. And I'm going to turn it over to these wonderful folks to tell you more about Nature's Educators and what they do.
All right. Hi, guys. We are here with Nature's Educators. We are a 501c nonprofit organization based out of Sedalia, Colorado, and we house and care for a variety of different birds of prey and other wildlife. So our goal is to engage and excite the public about the importance and conservation of raptors, and we aim to do so through education and rehabilitation. So today we are going to be talking about conservation of some of these very cool birds. And this is a topic that we are all very passionate about because currently birds of prey all around the world are in decline. Over 50% of species are currently in decline. Some up to 90% of their populations have disappeared. So this is something that we like to share and educate people on because birds of prey play very important roles in the ecosystem. So raptors are apex predators. That means they are at the top of the food chain, and they are actually very good indicators of environmental health. So they do important things like keep rodent populations under control, and some even help manage disease and how it spreads within populations. So we have a couple birds to bring out today that we will share a little bit about the species, their conservation, and little ways that you can help conserve these species. So I'm going to grab our first bird and talk about her.
And while Kendall's grabbing our first bird, we are a nonprofit, like she said. We are licensed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and USDA to have these birds. So we are licensed to be able to care for them. And the ones that we have to show you today are all with us permanently. We're their home after rehab. So we'll talk about how they came to be with us as you meet them. So Kendall's going to bring out our first bird.
All right, so this is Hades. She is one of our turkey vultures. And these guys we love to talk about because not only are they incredibly important for cleaning up our environment, but they are one group of raptors that are facing the most threats. Worldwide, raptors are declining, or vultures are declining by up to 90%. So these guys, one thing that they do that I mentioned is that they help clean up the environment. So these guys help get rid of diseases that affect other wildlife and humans. As many of you probably know, turkey vultures are scavengers. So they are eating dead animals, carrion, things that a lot of times we think of as gross. And these guys are kind of perfectly designed to eat these things. She has a nice featherless head to help keep her head clean. She has an incredible sense of smell to find her prey. Well, it's not really prey, it's kind of already there. And she has an incredibly strong gut. So their turkey vulture stomachs are so strong that they can actually digest and kill diseases such as anthrax, botulism, and the plague. So studies have shown that where vultures are declining, the rates of disease in humans and wildlife is actually increasing because these guys do such a good job of cleaning up our environment. Another threat that they really face, which is the main reason that vultures are in decline, comes from poisoning. So many times with birds of prey, their decline is caused by what we call anthropogenic factors. So these are things that are essentially human caused or human related. So in the case of vultures, it typically comes from poisoning, which those toxins come from a variety of different sources, from medications used in cattle to rodenticide and even lead, which is what I want to bring up with these guys, because in the United States, one of the leading causes of decline of vultures and condors comes from lead poisoning. So this happens when hunters use lead-based ammunition, which fragments upon impact and disperses hundreds of tiny little fragments. Now, birds are highly sensitive to lead as it is a highly potent toxin, and it only takes one or two of those nearly microscopic fragments to poison a turkey vulture, which is a rather large bird of prey. So what we encourage to help the conservation of vultures and all scavengers worldwide is for hunters to switch to non-lead ammunition. So non-lead ammunition is typically made from a copper alloy, and it expands rather than fragments. And it does not pose a risk to very awesome birds like Hades here. So now we're going to get ready to bring out our next bird. Oh yeah, and so one thing we do like to bring up with all of our birds is kind of why we have them. So as Erica mentioned, we have non-releasable wildlife. So in the case of Hades here, she was unfortunately hit by a car, which is something that happens a lot and we will get more into in just a minute. So you can see she kind of has a wing droop and she's actually blind in one eye. So she, with those disabilities, would not survive well in the wild. So she will spend the rest of her life with us, educating people about turkey vultures, lead poisoning, and all sorts of cool things about birds of prey. So now our next bird will come on as I put Hades away. Ready?
All right, here's our next bird. You guys probably know what this is. It's a pretty iconic looking bird. This is a great horned owl. And this is Erebus. He is a male, and great horned owls are found all over the United States. And in fact, it's the largest owl that we have here in Colorado. And you may notice his injury here. If he looks at the camera, he's actually missing an eye. He's got a nice yellow eye on this side, and he's missing it on this side. So that's why we have him now for education. And the reason that we have him is he was hit by a car. 70% of the birds that we have at our facility are hit by cars. So it is a huge problem, and people are good, at least about, if they do find an injured bird, you can call us or take it to a rehab center, but not all the time are we able to go out and release them again. So unfortunately, with being blind in an eye, he was not able to be released because he can't see well enough to be able to catch his food. So great horned owls are eating a variety of things. They are fairly large, so they can eat pretty much anything they can catch, but these guys are really known for eating things like skunks and raccoons, as well as other lizards, snakes, other little rodents and stuff that are out there, mice, that sort of thing. And so with being hit by a car, one thing that we can do to help conservation is to not throw food out of our moving cars. Because what happens is if there's a banana peel or an apple core or something that you throw out the window, yes, it's biodegradable, but it's going to attract those rodents and those other animals to the edge of the road. And then these guys are going to come eat those prey animals. And that's how they become injured. So please, one thing you can do is to not throw food out of your car. So with these guys, owls have some very cool features. You can notice they kind of have a facial disc here, and that helps them filter sound in for hunting or for finding their prey. So these guys have really acute hearing, and that facial disc helps them filter the sound in so they can find their prey. Sometimes these guys can find things 2 to 3 feet under snow, like a little mouse under snow. So it's pretty incredible the amount of hearing they have. They also have incredible eyesight. And great horned owls are known for these things on the top of their heads called plumicorns. So there's lots of different kinds of or sizes of owls. We've got great horned owls that have those plume of corns. We also have small screech owls that have those plume of corns. Those are used for communication and camouflage. These guys also have incredible grip strength in their feet. Try to bring him a little bit closer. So they actually have very cool feet and toes. They have something called zygodactyl bone structure that lets them have 2 toes in front and 2 in back, so 2 and 2, or they can also turn one and have 3 and 1. So if they're trying to grip something, grab a branch, grab prey, they can turn that toe. So it's very cool. And these guys have 500 pounds of pressure in each foot. Me as an adult, I can squeeze maybe 80 to 90. An adult male, maybe like 120, but these guys, 500 PSI per foot. So they are incredible hunters. They use that incredible hearing, that facial disc, that eyesight to help them find their food. Another thing that we want to talk about with him is rodenticide. So these guys are eating mice and other little rodents. So one thing or another thing that we can do is to not use rodenticide. Rodenticide causes rodents to suffer for a couple of days. Once they eat it, they're running around outside. It causes them to get thirsty. So they're out looking for water. And in the meantime, these guys go down and grab them and eat them. And it is then ingested by them. These guys are much better at controlling rodent population than poison ever would be. So please, if you have an option, do not use rodenticide, because it's not only, hurting the rodent population and not being as effective, it's hurting these guys and other things that eat the rodents. So a couple things you can do there to help with conservation. One last thing I wanted to show you is his coloring. I know it's kind of hard to see here, but these guys have incredible camouflage. They look like bark on a tree. So as you know, most of these guys are coming out at night. Not all of them. Owls come out some during the day, some at twilight. He's actually coming out at twilight, some at night, but they've got incredible camouflage to help them blend into their surroundings. So if you ever hear hooting in your neighborhood, it's these guys. Great horned owls are the only ones that hoot. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to our next bird.
Alrighty. So when talking about conservation of raptors, it is impossible to not talk about these guys because they are one of the few great success stories in conservation. So as many of you might know, this is a peregrine falcon. This is one of the fastest animals in the world. They have been recorded in dives going up to 270 miles per hour. And that is just one of the reasons these guys are truly incredible hunters. So peregrines, like other falcons, hunt other birds. So they are flying through the air, like she's showing you, very excited. And as they are flying, they spot their birds. Now, in order to hunt other birds, you have to be incredibly fast because those birds are flying as well. So peregrines and other falcons have really stiff feathers that help them fly and cut through the air, and really long pointed wings. Again, think of them like knives to help cut through the air. So what peregrines will do is they'll be flying up above their prey, and when they spot their prey, they'll start a dive, which is called a stoop, and essentially come straight at their bird from above and punch it out of the sky. And then they follow their prey down to the ground and use a very unique adaptation on their beak called a tomial tooth that fits perfectly between the vertebrae, and they will actually sever their prey's cervical, like their spine. And then once on the ground, they can enjoy their nice little fresh catch. But the reason we have Penny here today when talking about conservation is because peregrines were almost completely wiped out. So in the mid-1900s, scientists noticed, she's very excited, she likes telling her story. The scientists noticed that peregrines were on the decline. They were disappearing all over the country. And typically these guys are found worldwide on every continent except Antarctica, but they were just getting wiped out and we weren't sure why. And scientists discovered that it was the use of DDT, which is an insecticide, that led to their decline. So DDT as an insecticide was ingested by insects, which small songbirds then ate. And birds, like I said, are these guys' favorite meal. She's being too cute, it's distracting me. And so the peregrines would eat the songbirds that had ingested insects with DDT, and it was affecting the peregrines. So while this wasn't killing the adult birds like lead poisoning does to turkey vultures, it was actually affecting their ability to lay healthy eggs. So when peregrines are affected by DDT, it actually causes their eggs to lack calcium. So their eggs were very soft, very fragile. And when the adult birds would go to incubate their eggs, they would actually sit on them and squish them. So while the adult birds were surviving, DDT was essentially preventing the populations from growing. When scientists realized this, they banned the use of DDT in 1972, and this organization called the Peregrine Fund was started. They worked with captive breeding efforts and really a big conservation effort to save the peregrine, and luckily they were highly successful. So while these guys were nearly wiped out in the 50s, by 1992, they were actually taken off the endangered species list. So when talking about conservation, we love to give people little tips to help, do their part to help conserve these birds, but we also like to share the success stories for birds like Penny and peregrines all across the world that we now get to see and enjoy due to conservation efforts. So that is kind of the wrap on our little tips to helping in conservation. So we will open it up now for any questions that you may have or questions that Liz has.
Yeah, actually, our group did have a couple of quick questions for you, if you don't mind staying a little bit longer.
Mhm.
So, you talked a little bit about some things that individuals can do specifically to some of these birds. Are there a couple of easy ways that individuals can lessen their impact on wildlife?
Yeah, so a couple of the things that we mentioned, like, don't litter, don't put things out into the environment that shouldn't be there. The simple act of not throwing an apple core out your window can help save all sorts of birds of prey because it gets them off the roadside. So unfortunately, in rehabilitation, one of the leading causes is birds being hit by cars. So being vigilant and not, limiting the opportunities for that is a good way to help birds. Additionally, like we talked about with the rodenticide, and think about your own environmental impact. These guys are apex predators, so they need those rodents. They need the mice and the prey and things that we might think of as gross or vermin, but they're essential for these guys' survival.
Okay, great. Okay, I have a kind of a fun question for you. Kendall, do you have a favorite bird? And if so, why?
So I kind of like to say my favorite bird is the one I'm handling at that moment, because working with all these birds, it's you see such a different personality and dynamic for each bird. So really, it's for me, it's just whoever I happen to be interacting with at the moment.
So, one question I have related to nature's educators and the work that you all do is first off, you're a volunteer, is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. And so, how did you get into this role, and what does the training look like for someone who might want to handle birds?
Yeah, so Nature's Ed, we are a primarily volunteer-run organization. So there is a small staff that oversees kind of, the overall care and run of the organization, but volunteers really help keep Nature's Educators going. So I joined the organization early in May this year, actually as an intern. And this is, I believe our internship program is a great way to get into working with animals and education and things like this for students, for really people of any age. And in terms of volunteers, we really are open to anyone who is passionate about animals, their conservation, wanting to kind of help make a difference for these guys. Very excited. And so when volunteers join, we get to work right away training them with like daily care and working at programs. And eventually after volunteering for a couple months, you build up to really learning how to train and handle the birds, which is a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, I can only imagine it would be wonderful to be able to help these animals. And so our final question for you is just how many birds, or what's an estimate of the number of birds that Nature's Educators has been able to rescue in its time?
Yeah, so right now we care for around 50 birds of prey. There have been more throughout the years, but we currently house about 50. So that's a good number of how many we are doing, daily care and taking out to programs. And additionally, we actually recently opened a rehabilitation clinic. So we are now licensed to take injured wildlife to help kind of heal and rehabilitate with the ultimate goal of releasing them back to the wild. So while we have, rescued the 50 birds that are our education birds, we also now have that opportunity to rescue even more and help conservation through rehabilitation. So taking in injured wildlife with the goal of releasing them back to the wild.
That's really wonderful. Well, thanks again for your time this afternoon or this evening. And I just want to remind folks again that the gallery, 40 West Gallery, is open tonight for First Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. with our exhibition, The Art of Conservation. And it addresses conservation in many different forms, including with the work that Nature's Educators does. And you can also see the exhibit through October 24th. Our gallery is open Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from noon to 4. So thanks, everybody, and we hope to see you in 40 West Arts District soon.
Thank you.